Hello, hello. All right. Not sure how to make myself share the screen. All right, guys. So what a day. Um, well, first of all, I want to apologize to everybody who showed up to the live. I wanted to do a podcast today for you guys, or a lecture for you today. I wanted to do a lecture for you guys today, since it was my mistake. Let me tell you guys what happened. So always do a long bike ride on Sundays, and I ended up deciding today was the day to do 100 miles. So at about 60 miles, I'm like, I still feel okay. Let me go for it. So I ended up um, doing 100 miles. And then by the time I got back, it was actually 6:40. But I was so jazzed up about getting that 100 miles done. And I didn't want to let you guys down, because of my mistake there. I got so excited about doing that I totally forgot about my responsibilities. But I wanted to get this this lecture up to first. I'm going to excuse me. First, I'm going to lay a foundation of what we discussed in the first lecture, which was basically how I learned jujitsu and the problems that I see in the way jujitsu is taught, not just from a fundamental standpoint, but also from the standpoint of it's just very complicated. The presentation and the dynamics of how things are done, move collecting, tends to slow down the learning process. So I think I've come up with a pretty good solution, the master plan. The formula that I tend to use is a very simple formula. I bring three things to the table. Number one is a mindset, JVOS, which is a way of thinking, a way of looking at the world, a way of perceiving problems, and a rational way of thinking to solve those problems. Also, it lets you know what battles are truly important. There's a lot of people that engage in battles in jujitsu that aren't necessarily the right battles. It's like, why are you fighting that particular battle when there are easier ways to achieve the same goal? So I want to take a few lectures. I have a feeling I'm going to have to do about 3 or 4 lectures on JVOS. And I think that the best way to describe JVOS would be in a lab. So um, I'm thinking maybe next week we will do our first lab where we start going through the terminology, and then I start to kind of demonstrate it online, or yeah, demonstrate it on the mat, and talk about it on the map. So JVOS, I think, is something that I want to dedicate some time to, and I don't want to really get rushed through it. So the presentation that I have for you guys today is based on core ground positions, and that will give you guys, at least I think for most of you guys who have been doing jujitsu, and even for some beginners, it'll give you a very basic platform to go to build from. Excuse me. So in page 19 of the master plan textbook, excuse me. So in page 19 of the master plan textbook, I describe a typical jujitsu experience. This is basically the formula for move collection. And um, the biggest problem in this equation is that the student is required to figure out all the things, right? They have to um, figure out which techniques are best for their style, group techniques into categories, figure out what to develop in their style, piece together a complete game, come up with a strategy, and hope for the best. And like I mentioned last week, for those of us who are fortunate enough to be able to absorb and dedicate large amounts of time to this, yes, you can learn it, and you can even learn it at a somewhat rapid pace. But it really has to do with the student themselves, either accelerating or slowing down the learning process, because they are the ones that are having to figure it out. So if you can figure it out quickly, then you will get good fast. But you cannot rely on the system itself to get you good quickly. Um, on page 27, this is kind of the way it looks in practice, right? You learn a bunch of moves, and then it is your input that has to figure everything out, and then you basically hope for the best. And on page number 31, this is my way of doing things. This is the master plan's basically formula. And the way that I did it was, I rather than teaching you a bunch of moves and having you figure out what moves work best, I wanted to start with something that I call desired results. So I think that this is such a powerful way of thinking, starting with what you want and then aligning yourself to best reach that goal. So for the master plan, my goal was pretty simple: rapid skill development. I wanted to cut the time where people would the time it took for people to learn jujitsu. I think that I always thought that there was a faster way, maybe a better way. So that was very important to me. Secondly, is universal comfort. What that means is, no matter what position you're in, you're competent. No matter what position you're in, you don't feel like you're in danger. You understand that there is a path and a way out. You see the world for what it is. You understand the limitations of each position or configuration. You understand um, the crucial battles. You understand the hand control. You understand all these things. And because of your understanding, your deep understanding of these philosophies and these ideas, universal comfort is inevitable. Next, uh, high levels of effectiveness. I don't want a bunch of moves that only work 10% of the time if I can get to them at all. I like moves that are 80%. I like high percentage techniques. So I'm going to do the things that are going to that are successful more often than they fail. I think it is so important to really focus on the things, on the techniques that work the best. Let's figure out what works the best from each particular position, master those skills, understand the threshold of each position. A threshold meaning there's a limitation. You know, the position is only so good, no matter how good it is, no matter how good the move is. Nothing is ever 100%. But Hickson Gracie talks about that jujitsu's lost its effectiveness, and I think that as always, as I've always said, I think that the rule set, the current jujitsu rule set, the point system really limits people's growth, because they are sandboxed. They're not allowed to think freely. And economically, they are taught to rush things based on time and 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 to try things that might not work as frequently as we would like. Next is high efficiency. There's nothing better to me than rolling with somebody who's way younger, faster, stronger, and making them tired and me not be tired. I love it. I love it. It's the greatest thing ever. Now, obviously, there are multiple ways to generate fatigue, as well as allow yourself the allow yourself the opportunity to be as economical as possible, whether it's by frames, whether it's by red light, green light timing, whether it's by maximizing control on the hand or on the foot or on the knee. All of these things tend to add up. And all of these things will marginal gains, right? Marginal gains. You start to stack all these little things up, and they start making some really big differences. So, being present in your decision making, not allowing your mind to panic, not allowing yourself to feel like you're chasing the opponent, but rather you're generating their behavior. This is an incredible way to be efficient. So efficiency is a huge part of the master plan. I'm very proud of how we've discovered and developed how to make people tired. I think it works fantastic, and I know you will too. So, and the final desired result, and this was a very big one for me. The motto of my style or my brand is "Don't get hit." Um, I take pride in the fact I never got knocked out during fighting in practice ever. So on the ground or standing up. And that was by design. That's because I fought a particular way. That's because I understood that hand control will limit the opponent's ability to hit me. So I mastered hand control and I understand range very, very well. So um, you have no gi as the first level, I would say, layer of information where mechanics are basically everything. Then you have the gi, which adds another layer of complexity based on the grips and the variety of creative ways that people can use the uniform. And then a layer above that, it's not really above that, it can be above that, but at the very least, the next another layer beyond the mechanics um, is um, punch defense, the ability to neutralize strikes, and this is where I think my guys tend to do really well because I'm trying to prepare them for that. And punch defense is ingrained into how I roll. Stapling the arms. Why do I always staple the arms? Because I can always hit them after if I need to, but I'm creating a default behavior and a default attack pattern where if you were to add strikes at any time, the system is completely adaptable. As a matter of fact, it was designed around punch defense, so I'm very proud of that. Um, and I mean, who's doing it better? I mean, who's doing it better? That's what I'm saying. Um, all right, so I want to put section 4, page 41, JVOS. I want to discuss that later. I'm going to have to really go through and go one toolbox at a time, and we're going to go through the terminology. I'll let you guys ask questions, and we'll go from there. Now, the next thing that I wanted to get to was really another breakthrough. I think JVOS was a real big breakthrough. And I believe that core ground positions is another massive breakthrough because what core ground positions has done, it has simplified the world. It has simplified grappling and made it very structured. So page 105, we start with core ground positions, and there are 4 core ground positions. Actually, 3 core ground positions. Core positions, there are 4: standing, chest to back, chest to chest, and supplemental. Now, let me explain why this is so important. I believe the simplification of the complexity, there is a chart in the book, The Simplification of the Complexity. It is on page 119. And if you take a look at this chart, it's almost like a consolidation. And if most people start at the very least on main positions, never mind core positions, most people are limited to the main positions. And let's just take standing out of the equation. So let's just focus on the core ground positions, which is chest to back, chest to chest, and supplemental. Now, if you look at the right hand side, this is the way most people see jiu-jitsu, right? They see a bunch of moves, individual techniques. A move here, a move there, a move here, a move there. I want you to use your hand and cover core ground positions. Maybe you have a couple of moves from turtle, maybe you have a couple of moves from back mount, maybe you have a couple of moves from guard, but they don't necessarily have anything to do with each other. You just have moves. Now, the longer you spend in each position, you get more and more moves. But there is no explanation of how those moves, one, which ones work the best, and two, how they work together as a system for the most part. So if you're collecting a bunch of moves, and then obviously once you have a bunch of moves, you need a bunch of steps to moves. And again, if you're just looking at this, you kind of see a bunch of little dots, but you really don't know what is what. And as you do more and more jujitsu, now you start becoming a little bit more experienced, and you start moving a little bit more towards the right. You go, oh, sub configuration. Okay, well, that could be maybe a side mount, and the opponent has the arm under the neck. That's one option. Or the opponent has the arm over your head, so that your head is under their armpit. Those are two. It's still side mount, but there's sub configuration. You either have the neck hug or the arm is not on the neck. So these things you start to say, oh, okay, so from this position I can do X, and from this position I can do Y. Again, you're still looking at it as moves. You're not really looking at it through the lens of core ground positions, and I'll explain what I mean here in just a second. So this is the world that, in the way that most people see it, very complex, a lot of positions, a lot of sub configurations, and I think that it just creates so much chaos. And even when I was a black belt, I realized that there were certain positions like Mount Bottom that I was very, very weak. And once I was exposed to this, I spent 2.5 years on Mount Bottom, mastering the bottom of the mountain and understanding that my positional perspective from that particular configuration had to mature. I had to spend the time there to understand the possibilities, to understand where I'm comfortable, where I'm not, what angles I'm going to win, what angles I am not, what I'm fighting, and how I'm fighting it. So the way I look at this is very simple. Most of jiu-jitsu is done from a chest to chest perspective because the opponent is engaging with you and the battle is face to face. Now, chest to back and supplemental are what I call finishing destinations. Although you can finish from, for example, side mount or guard top sometimes, right? Very rarely, but it's more feasible that you can finish from the side mount or from the mount, which are the three um, core ground positions for chest to chest: the guard, the side mount, the mount. That is where most of the battles take place, and the opponent's best shot at beating you from the bottom. Now, out of those three positions, the guard is the best possible chance that they have because they have the utilization of their arms and their legs, and they can use them dynamically and with great success against an unskilled opponent or people that don't understand how to beat the legs, the philosophy behind beating the legs. Now, supplemental positions or leg locks and arm locks, those are the extremities of the body. Again, finishing destination. So any finishing destination, you want to find it and then find a bunch of different ways to get to it. Now, between chest to chest and chest to back, there are two twisting transitions. This is very important. Chest to chest and chest to back are linked through twisting transitions. Now, there are two twisting transitions that I discuss in the master plan. I believe that they're the only ones. The first is the transition from the side mount to the turtle. So side mount bottom to turtle. There's a twisting transition, and you go chest to chest to back. So I understand how to attack my opponent, which makes them feel like turning over is the best thing that they can do. Now, again, the turtle as well as the back mount are my finishing destinations, my primary finishing destinations. This is where I would prefer the fight always take place. I'm not saying that I don't do arm locks. I'm not saying that I don't do leg locks. But the main thing that I want to say is chest to back is first for me. And then I can finish from the side mount. It's another great place. If I can pass the side mount and finish from side mount, I don't have to go anywhere. Sure, I would say side mount and chest to back. They're both primary. It just kind of depends on whether or not the opponent turns on which way, which one I use more frequently. Um, the second twisting transition happens from the mount to the back mount. So the mount and the back mount are linked through a twisting transition. But if you go one step further, just like we're seeing in page 119, imagine a twisting transition between chest to chest and chest to back. The main positions are determined by the placement of the legs. Are the legs around my body? Are my legs around their body? Are they on top or are they on bottom? Are the legs on the side? But at the core, there's a twisting transition between chest to chest and chest to back. Facing direction is the opponent facing away from me? Is the opponent facing into me? Now, I don't know what I can do if they're facing away from me. If they're facing away, I would say attack as if you were on their back because you are on their back. Same thing if I'm on the bottom of the sideline, the person turns away from me and starts facing the legs. They have given me their back. It is just how my understanding of how to fight from that position on whether or not I can take advantage of the position. But they're giving you their back. Look at the position. They're giving you the back. So when you look at the world through this lens, what direction are they facing? It makes it obvious what you can and cannot do. So the simplification of the complexity is how I perceive the world currently through the lens of core ground positions. I think this is revolutionary because it just makes things so obvious. I don't try to do moves from positions that are not even possible. You learn a move and the guy was set up in a particular way, and then, but he's not exactly in that way. So you're sitting here trying to force the move. It's like, no, get him to the position where it's easiest to do the move. Don't try and force it, but rather use suggestiveness, guide the opponent, make them react in a way your behavior affects their behavior. So make them react so that they turn or adjust in a way that benefits you. They can adjust to not benefit you, but what you got to realize is that you can do things to make them make movements that help you too. Common goal cooperation. Common goal cooperation. We'll get into that later. Next, I want to discuss the central hub. Let's turn to page 111. The central hub. Now, you know, this has been a revelation over the past year, maybe a little bit more, maybe the last 2 years. And that is that side mount is I believe, I have come to believe that side mount is the most important, if not the most important, at the very least, a great starting point in understanding ground control and ground escape, almost like the fundamentals of positioning should start with side mounts. Now, I call side mount the central hub. Imagine Dallas, Fort Worth, imagine Atlanta. These are the airports that everybody flies into, and then from there they can go anywhere. From side mount, you can get anywhere. From side mount, you can go backwards and go into the guard. You know, have your opponent put you in the guard. From side mount, you can transition to the mount. From side mount, you can attack leg locks. From side mount, you can attack arm locks. From side mount, you can create a twisting transition and land in the turtle or the back mount. So you can reach all of the core ground positions from side mount. So I believe that side mount is a great starting point um, to let people know where to go, how to get there, how to control. And then along with side mount, the understanding of basic mechanics, turning mechanics, unbelievable information. That slows everything down. So from side mount, we are focused on two things, the hands and the turn. I mean, from anywhere really, even the top, guard top anywhere, but really, it really hit home with me, the hands and the turn from side mount. Because if you can control people's hands and you can control their ability to turn, um, you have completely neutralized your opponent, and it slows things down in a way where um, the frame rates of reality, it allows you to calm down. So life starts to, your perception of reality starts to slow down. They slow down. They start, you're putting, grease and grime into the cogs, which are slowing down the scrambling ability. So side mount, I think, side mount and basic mechanics go hand in hand. Um, basic mechanics is on JV Jiu-Jitsu online. So if you haven't picked up basic mechanics, the side mount is a huge part of that. So again, all of the things that I'm discussing here will be put online. We just released the turtle top deep dive. I'm working on the side mount top deep dive, and each position will have its own deep dive. And then as I do these lectures, you guys can watch the videos, and then I'm trying to create a learning ecosystem for you guys that will help you learn this a lot faster. So what else? What else do I want to get into? Section 8, the biomechanical perspective. So core ground positions, and on page 130, the biomechanical perspective. So you have to, again, take yourself out of the idea of moves. This is not moves. This is the biomechanics. How does the body move? How does the body build? How does the body crumble? What spots on the body are most optimized to prevent certain movements, controlling the hand in particular ways to maximize the effectiveness and the efficiency of the overall control. Remember, my goal is to control the hands and the turn. Um, the understanding of turning mechanics, core turning points, the shoulders and the hips, secondary turning points, the elbows and the knees, and then the supplemental turning points, the wrist and the hand. The understanding of stapling mechanics, which prevent the opponent from turning into you or turning away from you. Unbelievable um, information. Because when you start to look at the world through the lens of basic mechanics, it makes things easier. You're not worried about moves. You're looking at where their hands are, where their feet are, and you understand how to control them, like really truly understand the invisible hand of how to properly control them, whether it's through uh, unsustainable angles, whether it's through central point engagement, which all of these things we will discuss and are discussed in the videos, whether it's through unsustainable angles, creating tension during the turn, um, optimizing control. All of these things are unbelievable. Basic mechanics, it's like a superpower. I tell my students all the time, basic mechanics are like a superpower. There are ways to control people other than being tight to them. I know that that might sound crazy to some of you guys, and you guys are thinking, well, how is that possible? It is possible through basic mechanics. You don't have to be tight to people to control them. I could be a foot and a half away from you and still have complete control over you because of my understanding of how your body moves and based in this reality, up and down, you can turn one way or the other. You can build. There's only so much. There is a threshold, and once you understand the biomechanical threshold, there's nothing else. There's nothing beyond that. It is what it is, and you either can or you can't, or you will or you won't. It's very binary, but the biomechanical perspective, understanding the leverage of controlling an elbow. So if an opponent is turning into you, lifting up on the near side elbow, the understanding of combinations. So sometimes if the opponent's turning into you, you can block their hip and then lift their near side elbow, block the far side hip to prevent them from rolling their hip up, and then lifting the near side elbow to prevent them from turning. So now you're using 2 points to counter their turn. And that makes you feel so much stronger because if you pin the shoulder, the hips can turn. If you pin the hips, the torso will turn. But if you catch the hip on the bottom hand and the elbow on the top hand, you can prevent the turn. If you catch the elbow on the inside of the knee, again, same idea, same mechanics. You're preventing the hip from rolling into you by blocking the hip or blocking the knee, and then obviously lifting the elbow. And then people will strain because they don't understand why it's not working. They don't realize that you're blocking their body in a way which prevents them from turning. So this is an unbelievable way to generate fatigue. So um, the biomechanical perspective is it's so powerful. So again, if you notice how everything is zoomed out. So on 130, you see the body, it's zoomed out, and you can clearly see the targets. That's what the core ground positions do in what I believe is a timeline. Because if you're facing up and you want to turn to your knees, you're either going to turn in or away. You have to build in a particular way. So it allows me to be able to stop those things. I can kind of see the future based on your current position, and that allows me to um, know where you're going, and it also allows me to stop you from going there, or at the very least slow you down or make that journey very, very difficult. So what the biomechanical perspective does with the basics of the body, I believe core ground positions does over time. Right? Basic mechanics also, they give you time, they give you a little bit of a buffer so you can lead people rather than react and chase. And that's why, by looking at the world through this perspective, things slow down. The frame rates in your mind, the way you are perceiving this reality will slow down, which when you have slower frame rates, time is passing slower, it's more reasonable, it's more manageable for you, you're able to make better decisions, and you're able to um, make rational choices, which, based on how on the rationality of your choices, will um, result in more favorable outcomes over time. Obviously, on page 133, let me see what else I want to talk about. Uh, on page 133, the hands, you know, this is a huge breakthrough for me when I discovered that the hands cause 90% of your problems. The legs are problematic, sure, but the legs can be defeated with geometry, with angle. The legs can be easily beaten with angle. The hands are a little bit different because the hands are very coordinated. People use their hands all the time. You don't have to train, most people don't train how they use their hands, but they train how to use their feet. So in jiu-jitsu, you're taught to use your feet and legs as hands and arms. But this comes at a cost. I believe that this comes at um, a cost in energy. It takes a lot of energy to always use your legs. The biggest muscle groups are engaged when you're using your legs in this fashion: the hips, the glutes, the back, the thighs, the hamstrings, the calf, everything, your feet, everything, your whole lower torso. 50% of your body has to be 100% engaged and very tight in order for that control to work. And if somebody has two hands fighting two legs, the two hands will beat the two legs 90+% of the time, if the person that's using their hands understands the angle and the patterns that will uh, most frequently beat the legs. They call it the geometry of the legs, understanding the geometry of the legs. But the hands are what cause you the most amount of problems. So I flip it. In jujitsu, most jujitsu people spend 90% of their time using their legs, beating the legs, fighting the legs. I spend 90% of my time fighting people's hands. And because I'm so hand control heavy, it automatically creates problems for people just because they're not used to that level of control, that level of effectiveness with the hands. So it gives me an instant advantage because people out there don't understand that until they've experienced it. So eventually people will catch on and stuff, but how much further ahead would you be? And, you know, it really started to let me ask the question of, what are we training, and why are we training it? And most of what I do is hand fighting. I do use the legs, I do use the guard, obviously, of course, but um, it has gone away from any sort of primary attack strategy. It is utilizing that position in order to change the control, or to control or to shift the tension from the bottom to the top. So that way I'm no longer absorbing tension, but rather generating it from the top. So side mount, I think, is far more important than guard. Guard is important, there's no doubt, but when you have to understand that when things go awry and people pass your guard, you're gonna side mount's what's gonna save you. So you have to have a good side mount, and the good side mount is all about the hands and the turn. Which configurations within side mount our red zones, which ones are green zones. And this is true in every position. There are red zones and there are green zones. And I go over that. We'll go over some of that in the lectures, and I go over a lot of that also in the videos for each individual position. So that was page 133, the hands. So important. It's such a crucial element to my game that and I find it to be such a huge advantage. I mentioned this briefly earlier, page 137, turn prevention. Understanding that um, turn prevention starts from the core outward, so the shoulders and the hips, and then it moves outward. So if I can control you using control over your shoulders and hips, I don't really have to do much else. But obviously, people will start adapting and start training more aggressively and stop you from doing that. So we understand our secondary and supplemental control options as well. I want to talk about here on page 137 the graph on the right there with the 45s and the 90s. Side mount is not just side mount. There is side mount when the person is flat on their back, and then there is quarter side mount. And what quarter side mount means is that the opponent has rolled on their side. They're either facing you, quarter side mount front, or they turn away from you, quarter side mount rear. And that goes back into the idea of um, facing direction, which I believe will be coming up here in a second. But yeah, the direction the opponent's facing, and that right there lets you know what is possible. Um, in the short term, um, and it gives you a very easy sense of knowing exactly how to fight the opponent, depending on which direction they are facing. Also on that picture, there's a 45-degree angle. In my system, 45-degree angles are unsustainable. So this is part of the success of the geometry of the legs is the understanding of unsustainable angles. They are unsustainable. You can frame if you're at a 90, but the second you shift every position to a 45, the building just crumbles. They are unable to hold you over time. So they can hold you there a little bit, but if you keep the person at that unsustainable 45, eventually the knees come together. And yeah, the geometry of the legs is all about unsustainable 45s. On page 139, um, we discuss the opponent either turning into us or turning away from us from the top perspective. This is facing direction. It's so simple and so vital. If you know if they're facing into you, you're going to attack one thing. If they're facing away from you, you're going to attack another thing. I really like this image on page 142, which is turn prevention. And it really breaks down the shoulders and the hips are the core. The blue are the elbows and the knees, which are the secondary, well, primary control points more often than not. And then secondary control points are at the wrist and the ankle. So turn prevention, unbelievably important and unbelievably powerful. The second you understand turn prevention, your life changes. Again, there's an image on page 145 of facing direction. I've discussed that. We discussed that a lot in the meat grinder and in the mount grinder as well. Quarter mount and quarter side mount, again, when the opponent is on their side. If you're in mount, it's either quarter mount this way or quarter mount that way. There's no front and back. But in side mount, yes, if your legs are on the one side, they turn into you, it's quarter side mount front. If they turn away from you, it's quarter side mount rear. So imagine one is chest to chest and one is chest to back. Of course, we discuss stapling location. So stapling is something that's so wonderful. You can just staple somebody's foot to the ground, staple somebody's hand to the ground, and either A, force the opponent to react and reach for that hand, or B, if they're turning away from you and you're stapling, just prevents the opponent from turning no matter how strong they are. So stapling the arm. And I think it was so, I think I made these, all of these images, I created them just because nobody's done it. I don't think people have done it. Like most books don't discuss these basic ideas. So this is actually, I believe, one of my proudest sections, just because of I had to create the artwork. I had to have artwork that was simple, um, black and white. Um, I wanted to create artwork that resonated with people, and was just easy to read. I think I could have made it a lot more complicated, but it's almost like the simplicity in the way it looks. It just makes things so much easier to kind of make real. The second you guys realize that you have to be able to see these things in your head, you can see this in your mind. Like I already know what it feels like when an opponent starts to turn into you, turn away from you. After a while, you can just feel it, and it makes things so simple. Page 152 again, hip hug control, the power of controlling the hip and preventing the opponent from turning. Such incredible control with so little effort. That's the thing about turn prevention and these basic mechanics. It works so good, and it's so easy, and it's so hard for your opponent, which is exactly what I want. I want them to work as hard as humanly possible, and me not have to work as hard as humanly possible. Um, yeah, I talk about optimized control. We also talk about constant core tension. Constant core tension is if you're able to make the opponent engage their core, engage their hips or backs, everything is kind of tense. There is a way to do that. I believe the best way to do that, or one of the ways to do that, and there's two axes that you can make this happen in, is preventing the opponent's knee from going to the shoulder. This movement here, where the knee is coming to the shoulder. If you can hold the knee from coming to the shoulder, it engages this constant core tension and makes the opponent work very hard. That is one axis this way. There's also a rotational axis which does the same thing, where I'm, for example, with the hook pass, utilizing the hook pass, which is in common sense guard passing on jvjujitsuonline.com. I teach you how to use your hand to control the opponent's knees and create a twisting tension, which causes fatigue, and it really prevents the opponent. It limits their ability to turn and move while they are underneath you. Um, the last thing I want to talk about, yes, the last thing I want to talk about in basic mechanics are building and crumble mechanics. Building mechanics are, for example, from the side mount, you got to go to turtle. In order to go from side mount to turtle, there's only two ways that you can come up. Number one, you turn on your side to quarter side mount, and you get up on your elbow first, and then you turn to your knees. That is one way you can do it. The second way you can do it is you turn on your side from side mount, and then you bridge up to your knees, and then you get up to your elbow. That's it. Those are the only two ways to do it. If you can stop them from doing that holding heavy weight over their hip, by pulling their hip, by blocking their knee and pulling their hip, by going spiral ride, by breaking the guy down to their elbow, breaking them down to their hip, and then from their hip and hand to their elbow, and from their elbow and their hip down to their shoulder. So the opponent can build up. There's only so many ways he can build up, but there's only so many ways I can break him down. So I'm obviously, if the elbow coming up and then the hand coming up is the sequence, then what I'll do is I'll go from the hand to the elbow, and then from the elbow to the shoulder by pulling the shoulder down. So there's a way that you can break your opponent down. People are in such a rush to change the position. They're not making the person suffer or work more than they need to during that process. I believe that most people are rushing to get whatever they want rather than guiding the opponent. So again, basic mechanics, this lets you know where you are through motion and time. You know that if the guy comes up to his elbow, how to break him back down. If he comes up to his hand, how to break him back down. If he comes up to his knee, how to break him back down. And making that building process, the turning and the building, make that the battle rather than fighting their hands and fighting their feet when the guy is facing you. You can make certain things battles. I call them disruptions in the matrix, where you can, if you can make this very simple thing, for example, hugging the neck, if you can make that super difficult, it focuses all of the opponent's energy on that. And if you're very good at that, you're going to win that battle most of the time. Same thing with the underhook from the bottom. If you understand how to use an underhook, it makes the guy on top tired. So understanding the crucial battles, understanding how the building mechanics and the crumble mechanics work, understanding there's only two twisting transitions from the mount to the back mount, from the side mount to the turtle, understanding that there is chest to chest, chest to back, and supplemental. There are battle destinations, there are finishing destinations. What are the finishing destinations? Chest to back, turtle or back mount, or the mount, or leg locks, or arm locks. These are all finishing destinations, right? Understanding that side mount is more important than most positions. Some positions are more important than others. I like to teach my students to beat the center of the body first before I start delving out into the extremities. I think that following these basic rules will save you from a lot of problems. I think that, I when I was in college, I had the philosophy, because points were so hard to score, that the less I give up, the less I have to score. The less points I give, the less I have to score to win. And by following these basic strategies and game plans, it makes things easier. It simplifies the problem. It gives you a hierarchy to the positions, and in um, along with a hierarchy of techniques, a hierarchy of skills within positions. I don't even like to say techniques. You are building skills within position. How are your skills from the back mount? How are your skills from the mount? How are your skills from the side mount? What are your skills? I have the ability to make my opponent turn. I have the ability to finish um, at a high rate because I'm able to trap their arms. I have a very good skill at stapling people's arms. I have a very good skill of preventing people from turning to their knees. I have a very good skill of breaking the opponent down if they if they turn to the turtle. I have a very good skill of bypassing the legs. I have a very good skill at not getting rolled from the mount. Those aren't moves. Those are You're building a skill set based on a strategy, based on solid fundamentals, based on basic mechanics, based on probability of victory. How do I know? Because I ran the simulation. I put myself in these positions for hours and hours against thousands of people just to see if they would give me a different reaction than the last. And then understanding what configurations I'm strong, which ones I'm weak, and constantly forcing the battles in the configurations where I'm strong. Allowing battles in configurations where I'm weak to kind of make myself as good as I can from the worst possible places. The master plan gives you three things: a mindset, positionally based chapters, and a strategy from each one of those chapters. All right, guys, that'll be it for today's lecture. Um, I do want to spend some time on JVOS. I really think that we're going to, I think you guys are going to have a lot of questions about it. I think core ground positions, it's kind of good that it worked out this way because core ground positions, facing directions, basic mechanics, these ideas I think are a little bit easier to absorb because you have experience and you've seen the positions before. So it makes a little bit more sense. Hopefully this helped. Hopefully this brought you guys some clarity. If I didn't do a good job, go ahead and leave me a comment and I will try to clarify what I meant. Again, guys, sorry for today, but I did want to get this out. I was so hyped about doing the 100 miles. And I don't know if you guys know, but I ride. I like to ride, and I hadn't done it. I've been wanting to do it, and I've been messing with my bike fit on one of my bikes to get it dialed in, and I got it dialed in last week, and then I really fine tuned it yesterday. I made just a small little adjustment to balance myself properly over the bottom bracket, and it was so dialed. It was so dialed. So I felt good. I wasn't really tired at 60. I was tired, but I felt like I can do it and I did it. But anyways, guys, I wanted to apologize and do this one for you. Hopefully you guys forgive me. Love you guys, and I will see you guys next week. JVOS next week.